We're going to formally get started. We're going to get rocking and rolling. I want to welcome you all to Connect Wednesdays, episode 119. I can't believe we've been here consistently delivering week after week for 119 episodes. This is also our 4-year anniversary here at Skyton Academy. So I greatly appreciate you all because without you all, there wouldn't be an academy, right? So thank you all for your support. Thank you all for being here, tuning in. We love you guys. And again, we're humbled, right? Great to serve you all. All right. Now that that's out the way, let's get rocking and rolling. So tonight is going to be the moment that the fog lifts. This is not a standard dot connect. All right. In the last 72 hours alone, the United States government didn't hint, they didn't signal, they didn't suggest. They confirmed the shift that we've been preparing you all for many years. The OCC, right, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, they officially gave US banks permission to hold crypto assets on their balance sheets. Hours later, the Federal Reserve quietly rewired the supervision model that governs the entire banking system. And in the same week, there's 9 XRP ETFs all going live across Wall Street. This is the convergence moment. This is the moment where you don't even have to consider the legacy system collapsing. It's evolving, right? And it's evolving directly into the architecture that we've been warning you guys, teaching you about, preparing you for, which is blockchain-based rails, real-time settlement, right? Tokenized money, and institutional accumulation of crypto. Tonight, this is no speculation, this is no theory. I'm going to decode what regulators literally wrote into law and what institutions are now executing at full speed. If you've been waiting for this moment, the world finally admits what this new financial system looks like. Congratulations. You're alive and living in it. All right. So, first things first, out the gate. So, the OCC just gave the banks the green light that nobody was expecting, right? But everybody needed. So, let's get straight to it. So, yesterday, Tuesday, November 18th, 2025, the OCC, which is again the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, that's the federal regulator that's over all national banks. They quietly dropped one of the biggest crypto announcements in US history. The OCC has now confirmed that banks are legally allowed to hold, buy, and maintain crypto assets directly on their balance sheets for the purpose of basically paying network fees on blockchain systems. So this is again not speculation. This is not me pulling something out of the sky. This is federal authorization. Banks can hold Bitcoin, which is wild, Ethereum, trash, XRP, hello, Solana, and any native token that they need to operate on a blockchain network. And here's why this essentially changes everything for us, right? I'm gonna break this down and I'm gonna keep it super simple. To use any blockchain, whether it's Ethereum, Solana, XRP Ledger, Avalanche, anything else, right? You have to pay network fees. You're going to pay gas fees if you're on Ethereum. You're going to pay network fees, validation fees, etc., right? Every single blockchain charges them in its native token, right? And for the banks to move into real-time settlement world, that's tokenized deposits, stable coins, CBDC experiments, and pilots that they have, cross-border payments, smart contracts, distributed ledger technology custody. They must pay those network fees. Before this letter, every bank had to rely on a couple things: third-party service providers, middlemen or quote unquote intermediaries, and then you had external crypto agents. Now, banks can actually hold the tokens directly. Banks can pay the fees directly. Banks can run the networks directly. This is the clearest signal yet that blockchain rails are becoming the backbone of the new financial system. So I'm gonna walk you guys through exactly what this means, right? And I know there are some newbies that's here with us, rocking with us tonight. Greatly appreciate you guys for being here. All right, first things first. Banks are officially moving on chain, right? This is no longer experimentation. This is operational. Banks must accumulate crypto to be able to operate. Again, not optional, not speculation. Then this is something that you have to consider. It's required. Three, banks will choose whatever blockchains that they want, and it's going to be the ones that are efficient, reliable, and they're built for scale. Hello. All right. And then four, there's a demand for native network tokens, and that becomes structural, right? That's permanent, that's locked in, that's institution driven. You got the gatekeepers of the old system just stepping into the new system. So the banks that are a pain point for a lot of people, right? Even for the unbanked, the banks still cause these problems because of the system, the infrastructure that they set up, the products that all exist right now that were previously created before this innovative technology even existed. Those guys are now paying so close attention to this new technology, this new system, the future of finance is what we call it, that they have no choice but to adopt crypto. And every single regulatory body is consistently making changes that were not happening in the last 12 to 24 months. All right. Again, and this isn't even crypto adoption yet. This is crypto integration into the global banking apparatus. All right. So there's a question when I was reading this OCC document that I had to sit with, right? So I'm like, okay, what blockchains are these banks actually going to use, right? Now that they have like legal clarity that's kind of snowballing, if you will, what are they going to hold, right? It's still going to be based off a couple metrics: speed, cost, reliability, scalability. Those four things are going to be key factors for any bank. I don't care what they say. I don't care what information that they put out to you. You can easily be swayed off your rocker. So I want you guys to pay attention because this is going to help you. And again, this is not financial advice. This is education, right? I'm filling you guys' cup right now. So take some notes if you need to, but the replay is also going to be available. All right. So Ethereum, right? Powerful because they have smart contracts. Four assets that they can hold, remember? Four, based off the OCC letter. So Ethereum, again, it is powerful because they came out with the smart contracts. A lot of people say that it's easy to build on ETH because of those smart contracts. But, and this is a huge but, the gas fees, as you all know it, anybody who's transacted on that blockchain can be extremely high and volatile during any random moment, right? It could be congestion. There could be some news that comes out about Ethereum or a new project that's dropping on Ethereum. And because there's an influx of traffic at that moment, the fees could be astronomical and there's no really controlling it, right? And that's horrible. That's not what banks are going to go for. All right, two, you got Bitcoin, which is the behemoth, right? That was the first out the gate. It's the Nike of crypto, right, if you will. So everybody is championing Bitcoin. They're like, oh, this is freedom money, etc. It's slow, and I'm being non-biased here. I'm breaking this down, right? It's slow, it's expensive, right? And it's not built for high throughput payments. So we're talking about banks here. Banks are all about money movement, efficiency, fast, making it cheap, and just easy to happen, right? So there's two left. There's Solana and XRP, right? So now I'm looking at Solana. All right, Solana is super fast, right? But it's dealt with multiple outages and reliability concerns. The network is always down, right? So they've had ample time to fix this and correct this, and it hasn't been corrected. It's still presenting the problem. So now, put this in a perspective. We haven't had banks at this scale ever in cryptocurrency. Now that they're giving the banks the green light to use whatever blockchain, whatever cryptocurrency that they want to use, right? They're going to hold it, which means demand is going to increase for all of these assets, period. Because a lot of times they're going to try, and banks don't mind performing tests, right? So they may test ETH, they may test Solana, they may even test Bitcoin, right? But truth be told, all of those things have their problems. The only one that's left on that list, and again, I'm not being biased by any means. This is all factual. You guys can verify it on your own, and I urge you all to do so. You've got XRP, right? Fast, cheap, extremely, um, highly reliable. It's never had downtime. The XRP ledger has never been down ever. Even when we had the Cloudflare, the AWS outages and all things, it's never been down. All right. So you've got it's enterprise compliant. It's regulatory aligned. So it's been ever since even before the lawsuit. It's always been aligning with regulatory players and governmental players because it's always wanted to be compliant. The banks were always its target customers from inception. Now it's to a point where the banks need XRP and Ripple Tech, not the other way around. All right. It's scalable at the institutional level, which means more people that use it, it's going to do what it's going to do. All right. And then last but not least, it was built specifically for payments and settlements, cross borders, not just here in the United States. So you connect the dots yourself, right? Not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Banks need rails that don't break. They need fees that don't spike. They need settlement that doesn't choke under volume, right? This is where the conversation always leads. Now, this is the big picture. The OCC told you in plain regulatory text that crypto assets are now part of the United States banking system. Banks must hold them. Banks will use them. And the networks that perform best will dominate the next financial era. That's the turning point. Crypto isn't an alternative. It's not a high risk tech anymore, right? It's not outside the system. Crypto is now the infrastructure of the new system. That's why we call it the future of finance. And guess when the future started? Now. All right. So now that that's out the way, you kind of got a little bit of framework of where I'm going to take this thing. Now, this next part is something that the Fed, the Federal Reserve, they actually just did, and it affects us, the people. But it's mostly for educational purposes as well. So again, I want you to put your thinking hat on, and I want you to follow me. I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of perspective. So clear, and I'm actually dropped the link for you so you guys can have it, and you can pull this up on your own. And everybody inside the academy, you guys will be able to get these links. We'll provide it with the replay in plain English, right? So you fully understand what the Federal Reserve just did and why it matters. So a few hours after the OCC announced that the banks can now hold and use crypto to pay for blockchain fees, etc., the Federal Reserve stepped forward with their own move, and this wasn't random. This was coordinated. This was calculated. This is what we call the modernization of the banking system, and it happened right in our faces. So basically, the Fed just said they're enhancing bank supervision. They're going to tighten how they watch banks, how they reorganize, and how they evaluate certain risks that happen. And they're basically going to sharpen how fast they respond when something threatens financial stability. Now, I'm gonna translate that. So for banks, they've been operating under supervision models that were built decades ago, super old, super outdated, and it's just not how things should work in a new world, right? The premise is always about money movement, right? Having trust, having a sense of calmness when you're participating in any kind of financial activity, right? And you don't get that from a lot of banks nowadays because now you're starting to see truth. We have this thing called the internet at our fingertips, and we're starting to see a lot of these banks, they're on shaky ground. And it's because they lie to us. They're not transparent. They don't tell us exactly what's happening with their institutions. And these are the same institutions we put our hard-earned money into. All right. So now that I know you guys feel me on that one, this is what this means. Because those supervision models are super outdated, the Fed is now telling every single examiner, every supervisor, every leader at these banks, stop doing scattered, outdated reviews, right? Focus on the real risks that exist that can possibly and will break the system. So the key points of the link that I dropped, right? I'll give it to you guys in 5 points. Basically, it's focus on material financial risks, right? They're telling all the examiners, don't waste time on a bunch of paperwork and isolate the risk that actually threaten that bank, right? Liquidity problems, which is always going to be top of the list. Interest rate hikes and risks, credit risk, operational risk, and system-wide stability concerns. Two, they want to streamline the oversight, right? Banks were being examined by multiple regulators doing the same work, right? The Fed is removing those duplicate, I guess, oversights, right? So that the banks aren't basically buried doing the same repetitive reviews with different players, right? That should free up. It's going to take eyes off them a little bit, but it's also going to put more scrutiny on them. But it'll give them a little bit of breathing room so that they can, at least be transparent. Hopefully, if they do what's right, which we know 9 times out of 10 they're not. But with crypto, it's damn near everything is transparent, right? It's all on a blockchain, so we can all see it anyway. So as we make this transition, of course, there's going to be nefarious things that take place, nonsense that happens. But with the same technology, the same way it benefits them, it benefits us, the people. So this is why it's important for us to know what we're doing and actually how to navigate this tech, right? This is why we chose the educational side at Skyton Academy, right? It's all in your courses. I know sometimes like a lot of information. I'm like a brainiac, right? So I like data. Everybody doesn't like a whole bunch of data and a whole bunch of words and shit flying at them at a million miles per minute. And I respect it. I understand. That's not everybody's style. But what is everybody's style is the necessity to learn the foundation. And that's why we chose the education route. It's never been about like, yo, we're just telling you here, go invest your hard-earned money into a million different assets. We want you guys to be able to have the education, have the knowledge. That knowledge is what matters most because that knowledge will give you the vision, it'll give you the foresight, and it'll allow you to make strategic positioning moves that will in turn make you wealthy or put you in a greater space to be able to yield a lot of capital. All right. But you got to understand, you got to pay attention to what's happening. All right. Next is faster corrective action. If a bank is showing you signs of trouble, which 90% of the banks are, right? It's a liquidity crisis that's happening right now, right? The examiners are going to be able to act a little more quicker. So no more bureaucracy, no more yellow tape, no more slow poking. They'll be able to identify whatever's happening, sound off, and then everybody can step in and make the corrective action happen faster. All right. Four is going to be a unified playbook across the entire Federal Reserve System. So you all know that the Federal Reserve is for the United States. That's the United States Central Bank. So that means it governs every single bank here in the United States. They basically want every bank to be on a standard, right? Let's create one set of rules, one set of sharpened principles, and then that way everybody's on the same standard. It makes supervision easier nationwide. Now, once that happens, it's all going to be a level playing field because other nations are already doing this. So it's not just the United States. I'm just pinpointing what's happening here at home. Once the world is kind of on this new future finance standard, that's when you get that level playing field. All right. So this is a thumbs up for me. And then last but not least, you got formalizing into guidance or new regulation. Basically, this isn't like temporary. This is something that's being written into a rule book. This is the modernization of banking oversight. And it positions banks for the type of financial system that's emerging right in front of our faces. So now I can tell you guys what this means for us, the retail guy, the everyday person, right? When the Fed steps up supervision, it's going to affect real people in a few important different ways. All right. So, one, banks are going to become safer places to be able to deposit your money. Now, I'm not telling you guys that you need to go and rush and have 100% trust in going to deposit more money, right? I want everybody to be diversified. I want you to make smooth, calculated decisions, right? This is going to be important. Every time that we talk, I'm always going to reinforce that. All right. Two, I want you guys to understand that stronger supervision is going to basically decrease the odds of a bank failure, right? The collapses that exist. We've had these type of instability instances that occur, and it always impacts us, the people, way more than it does these wealthy quote unquote elites, right? If let's say a Oprah was to put 100 million into a bank, when a bunch of the crypto banks and stuff, they all failed, right? Because they had exposure. What happened? The retail person got wrapped up in the nonsense. Anybody who was FDIC insured, you only got up to your 250K, but the elites, quote unquote, the Oprahs and all these people who had money into these institutions, they got all their bread back, right? So at the end of the day, again, I'm not telling you to 100% trust these banks, but stronger supervision is definitely needed, and it'll decrease the odds of a bank failure or at least having these type of collapses and instability that exists. Two, you got fewer surprises like Silicon Valley Bank, right? So they failed because of supervision. It didn't focus on the biggest risk, right? The Fed is now making a correction for that exact failure. So now it seems like they're actually trying to do something. Now that we have somebody who's focused and is a money guy, Trump is 100% of that. He is always going to make sure, and I don't champion anything else he's doing. This is only a financial stance, right? He is a money guy, so he knows how to play the game. He's setting us up for the win. But if you don't know how to play this game, you don't know how to navigate these spaces, you're still going to be cooked because you lack foundation. All right. Um, Better transparency and accountability, right? So to piggyback off the Fed actually correcting those exact failures, now you got an instance where examiners know exactly what to look for, and the banks can't hide those weaknesses under paperwork. That's normally what happens, right? If there's a problem in a bank, what do? They try to hide it. They try to sweep it under the rug, right? They try to bury it in yellow tape and paperwork. Nonsense. But now, because we have the internet, we have so much resources that will kind of tell us what's happening if we know where to look. They can't hide it anymore. So they have to come up with some sort of accountability and some way to fix it, right? And I think this is a step in that direction. And then last but not least, basically a smoother transition into digital banking, right? And real-time settlement. I'm always going to advocate for real-time settlement and digital banking. The only problem is you still are at the mercy of the livelihood of an internet connection, right? So that's one of those things you just always have to consider, right? I don't like being dependent on different things, but we all are dependent in some shape, form, or fashion on electricity, on the internet, right? Having access digitally, right? So this is why I always say it's best to just be diversified, always have cash on hand, have tangibles like metals, gold, and silver inside of Skyton Academy. We gave you guys two courses. That's Glint Pay and that's at cost metals. So you guys have real examples and real outlets to be able to acquire gold and silver, especially when you have times like right now that we're in, right? Whenever there's chaos and economic uncertainty, you're always going to see the dollar kind of scale back. People get out of the dollar because it's really not backed by nothing, right? So people want to diversify, right? If they know that the nation itself is going through turmoil, what do they go to? Gold and silver, right? They go into land, they go into real estate, etc. Right? They go into those tangible things that will kind of safeguard them. So that's just another nugget, but we'll kind of go into that on another day. But at the end of the day, the Fed is basically tightening the guardrails before the next era of banking fully rolls in. All right. Now, again, this segment and this release by the Fed was not specifically about crypto itself, right? But context matters. So, one day before, like I told you, the OCC basically said that the banks could hold crypto, right? And they can hold crypto assets as principal for purpose of paying for blockchain network fees, right? And that's huge. It confirmed that banks are now allowed to interact directly with blockchain rails for permissible activities, tokenized settlement, instant transfers, digital asset operations, etc. And literally hours later, hours, same day, the Fed publishes the supervisory overhaul that's focused on the risk, material risk, system safety, modernization, faster response, accountability and clarity on examinations, and alignment basically across multiple sectors. So these two announcements, they in essence complement one another, right? So blockchain integration introduces new risk categories. And if banks are going to interact with tokenized assets and digital settlement and crypto-based payment systems, right? Supervision must be sharper. Two, real-time settlement is going to require stronger oversight. Those crypto rails move value instantly, literally at the snap of a finger. The banks can't operate with slow, outdated risk reviews. Three, you got the Fed preparing infrastructure to support the banks that's interacting with this new modern financial landscape, right? And all the products that come along with it. So, four, last but not least, you got the OCC allowing the banks to touch crypto, real operational use. Then you got the Federal Reserve, they're strengthening the oversight so that the banks can handle the shift safely. And then together, it's coordinated regulatory modernization, right? No speculation. The regulators are building the framework that allows banks to operate inside the hybrid system. So you got traditional finance plus blockchain-based infrastructure. That's it. So the bigger picture is at the end of the day, we're at a pivotal moment in history. And this is the realest thing that I could say, right? You can't supervise banks the old way, right? When the financial system is literally shifting into real-time digital settlement. And the timing, the OCC in the morning, Federal Reserve shortly after, that just shows that they're modernizing the rails, they're modernizing the supervision, and they're preparing the banks, and they're protecting not only the old system, right? They're updating it, and they're protecting what's to come. They're implanting their footprint in history, right? So some people might be like, this is nothing dramatic. It's just, a couple little quiet adjustments that's happening. But when you zoom out, you start to see the blueprint. The next system is taking shape. And guess who's all got a front row seat? You all. All right. So I want y'all to be paying attention. And I'm gonna leave y'all with this. This is the last segment before we get up out of here. Now, this week is wild. I knew that this time was coming, but I purposely didn't shoot any crypto and tens on it. I didn't put out a whole bunch of Instagram reels on the page. I've just been observing, right? And I think that was probably the biggest and best way that I could approach this. If you zoom out and just lock in, the scale of what's happening right now is bigger than anything the XRP community has ever seen, right? And it's bigger than anything Wall Street has ever allowed to happen with this asset. Now, we're entering the first true institutional XRP accumulation phase. 9 XRP ETFs all launching between yesterday and the 25th of November. Not one, not two, not five, but 9. You can't tell me this isn't coordinated. We're talking about a multi-issuer rollout, and the timing couldn't be any better. And it's definitely not accidental. So you got Franklin Templeton, Bitwise, 21 shares, Coin Shares, Grayscale, Wisdom Tree, and there's several more, right? The world's top asset managers are all entering XRP exposure at the exact same time in a 7-day window. Nobody has ever done this. We've never experienced this ever, right? Now, this is when the shit gets really, really loud. For Franklin Templeton, the ticker is going to be, I think it's EZRP ETF. They're saying that they expect Franklin Templeton's, the EZRP, to generate 150 million to 250 million in trading volume in one day. That's on day one. Think about that. 150 to 250 million in trading volume in one day for one asset. Canary funds, right? They already went live. They're a super smaller issuer. They did 58 million on launch day last week. 58 million in one day. That made it the strongest ETF performer on one day. It even beat out Grayscale's BSOL. It was BSOL. So imagine all of these players all at one time, all focused on XRP. Oh, it's about to be game time. Now, here's what I need you guys to consider. These ETFs, it's exposure, it's a spotlight, right? And they're focusing on this digital asset. But when they focus on the digital asset, what is the one thing that a lot of people miss? The exposure, the volume that everybody is able to gain, right, by investing in the ETF. I don't recommend investing in it into an ETF when you can hold the actual asset. Don't, in the words of Steve, don't be dumb. Now, when you start to put these things into perspective, this is the rest of the world. We're talking about um, financial advisors, wealth managers, pension funds, institutional clients. They're going to be able to deploy capital in size. Franklin Templeton controls 1,500 times more assets under management than Canary Funds. And I told you Canary Funds did 58 million on launch day. That means Franklin Templeton is going to triple or quadruple that number in a single day, in a single session. That's wild. So this is the ETF version of the big dog stepping onto the field, right? Then you got Bitwise. Allegedly, it's tomorrow, right? Thursday, November 20th. The ticker by itself is Elite. They got XRP as their ticker, right? That's the kind Wall Street only assigns to assets they intend to push into prime exposure, right? A single letter ticker isn't random. It's a signal of intended liquidity, visibility, and institutional flow. Then you got Grayscale. Grayscale got GXRP, right? They confirmed today on their Twitter that they're going, it said it's coming, right? The tweet basically just said Grayscale XRP Trust ETF. The ticker is GXRP. It's coming, right? Now, me, base case, I'm thinking today's Wednesday. If you just made the announcement Wednesday and you said coming soon, I don't think you're going to roll out tomorrow. I honestly don't even think you would roll out on Friday, right? Which is the 21st. I think what they would do is they gave it a little bit of time to breathe. And I think Monday is going to be the go live date, right? Because Grayscale does not file an ETF unless they know approval and demand are locked in behind the scenes, right? They manage the largest digital asset trust business in America, period. So if they're stepping into a XRP again and again, and after it was being forced to delist during the SEC case, that tells you everything where this thing is going, right? Then you got 21 shares, coin shares, Wisdom Tree. All of them are active, all filing. They're all launching in the same exact week. That's what I call coordination. So basically, what this means is you got multiple issuers that are launching ETFs simultaneously. That's because the rails are ready. Settlement infrastructure, market making, liquidity pipes, custodians, pricing oracles that are already in place, regulatory clearances. Then you got institutional demand. They already anticipating it, right? ETFs exist to basically give pensions, banks, hedge funds, sovereign wealth funds, corporations, right? All a regulated way to buy an asset that they otherwise couldn't touch, right? Then you've got capital wants exposure now, right? Not in 2026, not after the next bull run, which, by the way, this is just going to be a added gem on top. The next bull run is going to be a utility bull run. Mark my words. Period. Champ said it. Now, this is happening, not later. This is what phase shift adoption looks like. XRP is being pulled, not pushed, into the new financial architecture. It's been around for 13 years with a proven track record. The world's third largest digital asset by market cap, right? Settlement layer that moves value 3 to 5 seconds at a fraction of a cost when you're talking about fees. You got tokenization of treasuries, private credit, commercial paper, money markets. They're already live, all on chain, right? And the ETFs, they don't get built around hype. They get built around utility. So again, the next bull run is utility based. And you got 9 ETFs that's dropping in one single week. That's not an accident. That's what I call an inflection point, right? The same asset that the world dismissed for years is now being wrapped, listed, regulated, and positioned for institutional clients and institutional scale. So I got one real question for you. Do you think XRP is ready? Because I do. And truly, that really shouldn't be the question. It should be, are you ready for what happens when traditional finance opens the floodgates and they start treating XRP like the backbone of cross-border value? because the next 7 days aren't going to be just about launches. It's the beginning of a brand new chapter. It's the one the system pretended would never ever come. So, what you essentially saw tonight in no way was hype, right? This is a formal blueprint. And I'm able to take a step back and watch and see and position myself accordingly. The OCC legitimized crypto as operational infrastructure for United States banks. I can't express how huge that is. Then you had the Federal Reserve updating their entire rule book to be able to supervise a system that no longer runs off paper and delay and all types of nonsense and fuckery. But now it's going to be about instant digital settlement. And then last but not least, I broke down the ETFs so that you could see this is Wall Street for the first time in history preparing for mass institutional exposure to one digital asset through 9 coordinated ETFs, all launching, all getting approved at the same time. This is the beginning of a new system, not the ending of an old one. A world where the banks hold crypto by law, where regulators are hardening the rails to support real-time value transfer, and where the assets that are built for speed, compliance, scale, they all rise to the top. History doesn't announce itself with fireworks every single time, right? It shows up in memos, filings, guidance letters, ETF listings, quiet paperwork that basically reshapes the entire global economy. And tonight, y'all watch me break it down. I showed you the whole entire shift unfold in real time. Now, the only question is whether you're going to be a spectator in this transition or you're going to be a real live participant who understands the moment and you position yourself accordingly. Either way, the system already chose. It already knows the direction it's going in, right? And after this week, we at the point of no return. So I truly hope every single one of you enjoyed this. I'm going to let y'all sit with this info. Like I said, the replay is going to be available for you all, but you got choices to make. I can't make the choice for you. Steve can't make the choice for you. But what we can do is we can continue to give you guys elevated information and allow you to take it and position yourselves accordingly. I strongly urge all of our members, get through your courses. Once you get through your courses, graduate to the 1%. It's on sale. It's available for you guys. You don't have much time. You are early to the party. But when you have institutions and you have institutional demand for utility projects, they're going to accumulate faster than you because they have more capital than you. So you're about to start seeing a lot of assets not be available on these exchanges. Dennis, you hit the nail on the head. He said, hurry up and be patient. This is why we always express first mover's advantage is of the highest importance. Get your affairs in order because the world around you financially is shifting. So you got to do right. Not only for yourself, for your pockets, for your family, for your lineage. Because you're about to see a brand new world unfold. If you have not found a home for cryptocurrency, for sovereignty, for personal development, professional development, Skyton Academy is your home. SkytonAcademy.com. $1 gets you in your membership. These dot connects we have every week. These are free. So imagine what we deliver inside the courses, inside the curriculum. The proof is always in the pudding. I'm Champ Bobbitt. This is episode 119. Love you guys. Big love. Salute. Steve, my guy, love you out there. All right, peace. YouTube, love y'all over there. I couldn't chime in. I couldn't see everything that I was doing over there, but I love y'all over there. I see y'all over there in the chat getting busy. Appreciate it.